talk about some general playoff strategies.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you got to forget the high floor players. You got to dance with the ones who brought you, basically, too, as well.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
May be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
We got a question from the Discord here. What playoff strategies do you guys use? Do you go with the high upside players every week and forget about the high floor players? I don't know. There's also a thought that you don't really change much in terms of what you do in the playoffs, just kind of sort of play it your way. I don't know. How do you play, or do you change at all in the playoffs versus the regular season?
Don't think I changed too much. I don't know about you. The one thing I would say is, I wouldn't say you got to forget the high floor players, because as I talked about earlier, like that example of the Amon-Ra St. Brown versus the Devontae Parker is like, if you want, and like KJ Osborne, I probably, listen, I hope your team's better than this, that you're not like, I got to start 3 of these guys, but just leave that aside for a second. I probably don't want to start a Devontae Parker and a KJ Osborne type, 2 guys where I'm counting on big plays, touchdowns, conversions. I want to make sure that my lineup, more than ever, I want to do this generally, but more than ever in the playoffs, like if I'm going to start a Parker, I would love to have an Amon-Ra St. Brown type, a guy that's a high catch guy, a floor play there to just in case Parker gets only 4 targets. They're all downfield, only catches 2 of them and neither for a touchdown. I won't be banged quite as hard if that comes down here. But like Parker or St. Brown, who had no shot of going this high, is somewhere, here, gives me that floor play. Basically, I want to have balance with my lineup. So no, I wouldn't say that like you forget the floor plays. The floor plays are still pretty important. But the best thing is like you want to have, you do want to make sure that you are, you gotta just keeping things the way that, like, you got to dance with the ones who brought you, basically, too, as well.
I guess, how much do you still like, not consider ADP, but like, you kind of sort of consider talent level, right? It's like Patrick Mahomes, for example, I think is a great example. He's been kind of whatevers, but we know he's good. So how do you balance that out, right? And that's what I struggle with in the playoffs is, okay, how much am I going to go with a certified good player versus somebody who is like the hot Johnny come lately? You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't struggle with that as much in the regular season because honestly, I kind of sort of just play my guys.
Me too.
And then the fringe guys are much more of like, okay, matchup based plays, right? And I've got all the matchup data in front of me, right? So like that's the decisions aren't like too hard during the regular season. Obviously, you get banged because you never play your perfect lineup, or you very rarely do, right? That's the nature of fantasy football. But in the playoffs, I do struggle with that kind of decision-making process a lot more.
No, I totally get it. This is why I say like people churn their benches way too much in the regular season. It's like they just pick up the latest goofball who had like 15 points last week randomly, Yeah. I've said a lot of good things about KJ Osborne on the show, but he was like a perfect example of like, oh, he'd pop up for a random, game. I gotta get KJ Osborne on my bench. It's like the guy has no path to relevancy as long as Thielen or Jefferson is not hurt.
Yes,
now Thielen's hurt, and we're talking about, hey, you could play KJ Osborne, but like people churn their bench just picking up these goofballs off the waiver wire way too much. That's how you end up dropping like a player like Darrell Williams or something after you drafted him. And then it's like, oh shit. Now like Darrell Williams is starting at running back for the Chiefs and everybody else picks him up ahead of you. So I generally don't like people churn their benches and pick up these goofballs off the waiver wire way too much. It's tough, right? Like, do you dance with the ones who brought you? Like Michael Pittman, for example, been pretty good for everybody all season long. Plays the Patriots this week, do you play a Devontae Parker over a Michael Pittman? I don't know. That is a tough one, So I think you do have to wait because it is. And it's like, there's also an element too. And this is another, like a psychological thing more than anything. Somebody asked me on Twitter, like just not long, like 5 minutes before we got kicked off here. Good timing by you, by the way, random Twitter user, asked like, hey, I just need 10 points tonight. Do I play DeAndre Hopkins or Van Jefferson? And I said, like, if it was me, look, I like Jefferson enough tonight. I don't dislike Jefferson as a play tonight, but if it were me, I can live with like going down with DeAndre Hopkins in that situation. Like what can you live with? You have to ask yourself this question because this is eliminated and you're gone. The season is over.